I've tried them all. Pretty, digital, big, small, and slowly, over 5 years, I fine-tuned what I think is the perfect system. This way of note-taking allowed me to work for 3 Fortune 500 companies simultaneously, all while still making progress on my life outside of work. Having the right notebooks is the key, and for me, it was 3 main notebooks. They helped me get off my phone, out of my head, and silently were the command center for basically my entire life. Without one, honestly, the whole system falls apart. Starting with the prettiest and the newest, the Field Notebook. And I genuinely don't know what my life would be like without it. It's a tiny notebook. Well, actually, it's about average. But everywhere I go now, I have one of these in my pocket. And if we think of the note-taking system like a funnel, this is the top of the funnel. I put everything here, and I try my best not to filter out what goes in. Instead, I filter what comes out of it and moves on to the next notebook. And this is because basically I've noticed that I have the working memory of a chipmunk. The classic lie you tell yourself. You hear something great and you think, oh, there's no way that I could forget this. I'm gonna remember this. Nice try, Diddy. If I don't write it down, it's as good as gone. And even worse, if I don't write it down, my brain will feebly try to remember it. It won't, but it will still try really hard and take up precious processing power. See, we don't tend to think about this, but if we're trying to remember 50 different things, it's basically the equivalent of our brain having 50 extra tabs open, which makes it ever so slightly harder to focus than if we just closed them all and focused on one tab. Now, I go through one of these journals about every 1 to 2 months, and these are the 3 ways that I use Field Notebooks. The first one being quick notes or random thoughts. Someone says something on a call, or you have an idea while walking that will be lost if it's not captured. Then it goes in the Field Notebook. And this is particularly when you don't have a specific vessel to capture where the notes would be. These are the ones that would get scribbled randomly or put on a notepad app on your phone, and then you end up having 50 notes, no way to sort them, and you always end up spending more time than you would have liked on your phone. No good. It goes in here, and don't worry, later we have a method of reviewing what goes in the Field Notebook and how we'll transfer it over into the next one. But the second way that I use this notebook is when I'm struggling to fall asleep. Now, in the past, I was a champion sleeper, top 1% in the world according to my mattress, and I would get a 100 sleep score almost every single night, without fail, even when I was working 3 jobs. But now that I've scaled back to only 1 job, my sleep has fallen to the wayside. I stopped following my regimented system, and now my sleep is kind of shit. I lay down in my bed sometimes, and my brain goes into overdrive. You forgot this, you need to do that, you made your fool yourself here, what if this happens? And this is the Zeigarnik effect, whereby our brain is very good at remembering open loops, and it will keep assessing these loops until they're closed. For instance, waiters remember tables orders when they're open with pinpoint accuracy, but once that person closes out the check, they forget it entirely. We can take advantage of this by taking those thoughts that we're ruminating over and writing them down. I put them on the page, and then I tell myself that I'll deal with it tomorrow, and then immediately that loop is closed, and then I can fall off to sleep. And the third main way that I use a Field Notebook is for brainstorming. So you're faced with a problem, a decision point. How do I get out of this new assignment that my boss gave me, or what the hell is the thumbnail for this video? I will sit down, usually on the train, headphones on, and then I will rack my brain with all of the possible solutions, again, not filtering out the bad ones. And I will really push myself, sit there, and try to think of every possible angle that I could go down. And then, solution or not, I will release it and go on with my day. And then, every single morning, without fail, before pee, before my phone, I grab this notebook and start writing. I brainstorm on whatever I was working on before. And basically, I've been trying to tap into the process of hypnagogic brainstorming. And this is the method that Einstein, Salvador Dali, Mary Shelley, Isaac Newton, and many, many other notable people have used to help brainstorm more efficiently. Now let me nerd out for a second. If you don't care, skip to this timestamp when we'll go into the next notebook. But basically what this is it's a state between sleeping and awake called N1 sleep, or hypnagogia. And it's a strange, fleeting moment where your conscious brain is not tamping down on all your thoughts, and it feels like you have access to a much larger box of ideas. And it sounds insane, but it has been tested, and it's actually true. See, our brains are problem-solving machines, and we do most of it while we're asleep. And scientists tested this. Researchers took 103 participants and gave them a test. Now this was a specific math problem called a number reduction task. And within each one of these tasks, there was a through line, basically a loophole where if you followed it, you could finish all of these problems much, much faster. And if you solved this problem, you found the loophole within the allotted time, then you were asked to leave. The remaining people were split into two groups, and they would take a break. The first in just a normal well-lit break room, and then the second in a dark room where they would take a nap. Now this is not just any nap, they were napping with brain scanning devices on while holding a water bottle. And the method behind this study was looking at how people like Thomas Edison or Einstein worked, where whenever they got stuck, they would take a nap and hold something in their hand. Then when they were about to fall asleep, their grip would release and whatever they were holding would drop to the ground, waking them up. Now, the important part of this being that dropping this item wouldn't allow you to go into deep sleep and allow you to wake up and remember what was going on in your head. This is the same thing where if you wake up during a dream, you can remember what happened, but if you wake up after it, you have absolutely no recall. So scientists let these two people take breaks, and then they took them back to do the same test. Now, it turns out that if you took a break normally, there were still a few people who had that aha moment. Stepping back and allowing their brain to rest did allow them to come to conclusions. But if you were part of that group that took a nap, you were 3 times more likely to come up with that solution. Now, I find it to be a tremendous routine. Honestly, most of the time I just find myself staring at a blank page. So it doesn't work that frequently, but when it does, it feels like magic. And honestly, maybe even more importantly is that in the morning, it ensures that I don't go on my phone first thing. So hello everyone that skipped. Frankly speaking, this notebook pales in comparison in usefulness to the next one. This is the workhorse, the main piece of technology that allowed me to work 3 jobs at the same time, the Remarkable tablet. You've probably heard of it. It's a paper-like tablet for writing. And I love it because before I had it, I had a different notebook for every vector of my life. Meaning that I was juggling 4 notebooks, 1 for each job and then 1 for my personal life. And not only did this take up a massive space on my desk, but whenever I actually needed them, I was unable to find any of the notes that I took, and I often wrote the notes in the wrong notebook. Now, personally, I love physical writing. I think there's something magical about it, but notebooks were not the way. So I tried a handful of other methods until someone recommended that I get a Remarkable. And the name says it for itself. And the biggest selling point for me was its folder system. So yeah, I keep it very simple. 1 folder for each different vector of my life. 1 for each job and then 1 for personal. And within the personal one is maybe the highest utility that I have for this tablet. To-do lists. And I swear whenever I talk about to-do lists, I feel like a boomer, but I love to-do lists. I have done every variation. Ugmonk analog system, my phone, Google Keep, Todoist, among many others. And this is the best and the most simple form of it. It is all right here, and every day after I've finished my writing in the morning, I always create a to-do list before my first meeting, which is at noon. I work on West Coast hours. I create a new page and then write down everything that I need to do within that day, following a few specific rules. First, if it takes less than a minute to do, I will just do it immediately. And then I try not to make the list any more than 8 items. If your list has 50 things to do, then you're not prioritizing. Most of those things can probably wait. And within those 8 items, I try to include the important habits that I'm trying to create. For instance, right now I'm trying to do a front split, so stretching is one of the big ones. If I want to work out, those all go within the list. Now, do I go over 8 things? Yeah, frequently. I mean, rules are meant to be broken. But the third rule I try never to break, and that is to estimate how long each task will take, which is a little bit of psychopath behavior, but then I go and actually schedule each one of those items into my Google Calendar to make sure that I have enough time to do the things. See, when I started doing this, deep down, I knew that I wouldn't finish what was on my to-do list. It was way too many things, it was unorganized, unprioritized. Which means that I wouldn't feel bad if I didn't finish it because I expected that. But by slimming them down, making it a realistic amount of things that I know I can accomplish, I then start to build trust ever so slightly in those lists. And I've said this before, but the beautiful thing about building trust is it doesn't matter the size of the task, it more matters about the repetition. Now, outside of to-do lists, I also have folders for each of the big projects that are going on. And then at work, if I'm in a meeting specific to a project, I will open up a notepad and make sure that all the notes go within there. But honestly, lately with one job, I don't really use it for meeting notes that much because I have an AI note taker And when you're in kind of the maintenance phase of projects, there's not really that many notes to take. It mostly comes when you're onboarding a new project and you need to list out requirements and gain understanding. Now you can also use this tablet for reading, but I have found that if you turn on internet on the tablet, it slows the loading speed of everything. Ever so slightly, but it's just enough friction for me to not use it. So I turn it off, which means that I don't have access to their cloud storage or multi-device feature, but they added a subscription paywall for that anyway, so I'm not going to use it. Nice try. Now, a remarkable tablet might be great, but there are a few things that it absolutely cannot do. See, all the previous notebooks, the field notes, the remarkable, are all about doing. But then there's a big difference between documenting your tasks and documenting your life. The remarkable tracks what I've accomplished, but then these are why any of it mattered in the first place. And I have been using these every single day for the past 5 years. And honestly, these are maybe the sole reason why I didn't lose my mind working 3 jobs. And they're the only reason why I have any stories. My favorite book of all time is Storyworthy by Matthew Dix. It's probably right about there. And the first time I read it was during the pandemic. I knew that storytelling was important. It's both how we learn and how we communicate and connect with one another. But I didn't have any stories. Not I didn't know how to tell them, but I literally didn't have any. I didn't think that anything was interesting enough in my life to retell it, or so I thought. Until I read a chapter in the book, Storyworthy, about homework for life. It's a simple practice whereby, at the end of the day, you sit down and then you distill what happened in the day down to one sentence that made it different. For instance, on May 22nd, 2020, I bought a couple perfumes. I always wanted to have a smell. And then on May 23rd, it's the first race. It was the first F1 race that I watched at Monaco. And I bought my favorite shoes. And generally, the main reason that life speeds up is because of monotony. We do the same thing over and over and over again, and our brain is lazy, so it won't remember what's going on. And to really create memories, we need to have novel moments, and then we need to recognize and capture those moments. See, these books really are 1,800 days of me sitting down and recognizing what actually mattered. And then when I reread them, I'm creating frequency. And for the same reason that Anki flashcards work when studying, I am solidifying my memories. I am literally giving myself more life. Now, in the past, I tried journaling many times before, and I always failed. Similar to meditation, where I knew it was important, but I just couldn't get myself to do it. Until Mr. Dix gave me a prescription that was so small that it was almost stupid not to do it. It's only one sentence. And that system tricked me. It set the bar so low, I could always write a sentence. And most of the time, I write much more than a sentence. But even now, 5 years later, the goal every single night is still only one sentence. And for that reason, I think that's why I'll be able to keep this system going for the rest of my life. And every video I make, every story I tell, and every system that I have is coming from these books. So if you take nothing else from this video, take this. Start capturing your days one sentence at a time. That's it. Most people sleepwalk through their days. Same commute, same meetings, same scrolling before bed. Then they blink and a year disappeared. But the act of looking for something worth writing trains our muscles to actually notice a noteworthy moment going on while it's happening. And then maybe, just the act of noticing will gently push us towards living a life worth documenting. Thanks for watching.